Hello friends, this is Scott, and it is June 18th, and it is time to harvest this year's garlic crop that was planted last fall. Now what we're looking at here is what I have left from last year's harvest that's been down in my pantry storage area. Some of it's really dried out, but there are still viable heads a year later. They've just been sitting in the dark in a pantry, and what I'm going to do with these is sort through them, and I will use some, I'll dry them further, and then I'm going to make garlic powder out of these. But even a year later, we still have viable garlic. Not too shabby. But time to replace the garlic. Now this was back on May 5th, and this one to kind of give you a look of how the garlic looks within a month of harvest or a month and a half of harvest. So May 5th, this is what the stalks look like, nice and green, nice and straight and tall. Dug one up, but they're not near ready in May, as we see here. That's the size. The clove development hadn't started much, so the last month is a big month for garlic. Now here's June 6th, and you see there's some that are browning up, and we did a previous video on this where we dug up this one garlic just to take a test to see how it's doing. Again, June 6th, a month after the last video, or last check, and look at it, beautiful. This was one of the nicest ones I had. I just picked one, and it ended up being one of the nicest overall all the way around. But June 6th, most of them probably could have come out, but I waited. I didn't want to pick them yet because there were still some green ones. I wanted to keep them growing. Here we are, June 18th, harvest day, and this is what the garlic looks like. I let it go a little too long, I think, but it'd still be fine, but there's probably going to be some that have already started to separate. As you can see, the stalks are really browned up, and again, in a month, when they're ready, and you can definitely tell, and this is over ready. So you want to pick them probably a little earlier than this, but I just ran out of time and didn't get to it. So I've got a lot to dig up, so I'm just going to take the trowel and just start going to town. Now this side of the bed is kind of underneath some big lilacs from the neighbors, and so it's a little shadier, so they're usually smaller on this side, but even though that's a smaller stalk, it's an okay size head. And as I dig in here, I got to get rid of some of this mulch. So you see there's lots of weeds. There's some sunflowers, and I did use hay, grass hay as mulch. There's definitely seed in this hay, which did sprout, and so this area was a little weedier than I would have liked. I was continuously every day grabbing some grass and weeds and pulling them and giving them to the chickens, but I thought I'd stayed on top of it pretty well, but no, it didn't look like it. But again, these heads are all, medium to, medium size, small to medium at this point. So I'm kind of wondering if I had any bigger ones here, or am I just going to have the same thing I had last year with a lot of heads, but not the biggest. Again, these are store-bought garlic. They're soft neck varieties. They're nothing special. I just grabbed them from the store, broke the bulbs up, separated them into cloves, and planted them. Now here I'm going to speed it up because this is going to be kind of dry if I show you all my harvest here. But there's quite a bit of garlic here. I planted the full bed this year, which I usually don't, so should have plenty regardless of the size of the garlic. But I'm seeing them, and they're not looking too shabby. And I'm just whipping through this. It took me a good 20 minutes probably to pick this bed. Now this is called cropping out, I guess is the official term, when you get rid of a whole bed of something and you get ready to plant something else. So here's one that's not too bad of a head. Pretty decent clothes. Not shabby, not too shabby. Now I'm going to plan on planting root crops in here, beets, carrots, radishes, turnips, those types of things. So I've got to get this bed picked, harvested, and then I've got to clean it up, and then I've got to get it amended, and then I'll start planting some root crops. So there'll be a dual purpose for this bed this year. Again, I'll finish this off with some speed picking just to finish it up. Now, I always go through with my hands just because you always miss some, and I'll still miss some. There'll be some volunteers coming up, but I don't mind volunteers, but I want to get all the heads that I can at this point just so I don't have them coming up right in the middle of my root crops that I'll be planting. So here's a pretty good haul. I'm going to move it over to one side of the bed so I can clean this bed up a little bit, and then I'm going to move them and sort them out on a table in the back, but I just kind of want to get a look at what I've got here. As well as I want to be able to clean the rest of the weeds and stuff out of here. So I'm just going to put everything on one side, and then I can keep cleaning and double checking the soil and reaching in, making sure I'm not missing any or trying not to miss any more heads. I have a bucket on the ground that I'm putting all the weeds and mulch in, and there's worms. There's a lot of redworms in here too. So all this is going to go to the chickens, so they'll pick through this and enjoy the mulch. But I'm surprised at how many weeds I actually had in here. It was interesting. But going through it, I'm starting to feel better about the crop. I think we did okay this year. I'll give it a final grade when I show you what we did harvest. But overall, I think we can have plenty of garlic again. As I'm digging through here, I'm finding little bulbs, and here's what I was afraid of. When you leave them in too long, this is what happens. The bulb will start to separate and regrow, which they're still edible, but they're not going to be storable. So when you find these, you got to eat them quick. But you want to get the garlic picked before they start reproducing and start sprouting again. So here's a good pile of garlic. Again, there's some nice heads in here, and there's some a lot smaller ones. But overall, I think we did okay. I'll give you a better look here in just a minute after I took them in the back and put them on a white table that I've got, kind of a junk table. And here we go. This is this year's 2022's garlic harvest. And if you look at them, they're all different sizes, but we've got some really good ones and mediums and small, but they're all good. And they'll all eat well. And so it looks like we're going to have plenty of garlic again for another year, and we'll probably have leftover again, but we'll see. But overall, I'll give this crop, I'll give it a B-, because I think it was a pretty good average crop, but it could be better. But next year, I think I'm going to plant them at the hobby farm in ground. Now, here's some bonuses that I found while we were harvesting. A couple little green onions. They're bulb onions that we can eat. And then here is a bigger one that shows you kind of what happens when you wait too long to pick them. They separate like that. So this one's still edible, but I got to eat it now. I can't leave it just for storage. But it was a nice head that I kind of let go a little too long, but it'll be tasty. And then here I want to show you another kind of thing that happens with some of the garlic, not all of them, but you'll have bulblets grow in the middle of the stalk. Again, not too many of these had those this year, but this is another way that garlic reproduces. That's how it produces its seed. Here's the empty bed that I still need to clean up before I replant with the root crops, as I discussed. But it's a pretty good sized bed. I can grow lots of vegetables in this, and it worked out really, really well. But I don't have a sprinkling system to this bed, so I always water it with the water from the rain barrel. So it's really dry right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the rain barrel, see how we're doing. And it looks like, we have a full barrel. That's always nice. It's always good when you know it's going to rain, use the water up, because then, that's a good way to keep a good supply of water rather than just have a full barrel when rain hits and you don't capture anything. But I want to totally soak this bed in. I want it soaked all the way down to the bottom because, again, these are root crops that I'll be planting from seed, and I don't want to be dumping a bunch of water in here trying to get all the mix wet. I'll water on the top a lot more gently, but I want the bottom to be fully saturated before I plant the seeds. Thanks for watching today's 2022 garlic harvest. Again, it's about a B-. Did pretty good, but can always do better. Next year, we'll plant the new hobby farm in ground, and we'll see how those do. So I hope this video inspires you to grow your own homegrown garlic. Again, you plant it in the fall, and you harvest it in early to mid-June.